we should be okay. But I just wanted to address that because it was came up at the board last night.
Does anybody have any questions? For Fearless
I
Leader?
do. Is there going to be any more information coming out about graduation and how we plan for it? I'm just wondering when all that will come.
Yeah, so we have to have one more meeting with the town to go over the plan. And we're trying to get that set up. There's no date yet. You know, we have a lot of the plan in place because of last year, but what we're looking to do is to take advantage of, you've heard me say this before, but no matter what the governor's office says, the world of education still has to, kind of keep a tighter lid on things. So, no matter what's coming out about not wearing masks in public or any of that type of thing, it doesn't necessarily apply across the board. So we have to figure that out with the Board of Health and what we can and can't do. And so, what we're looking to do is maybe instead of people having to stay in their cars, to maybe have people be able to occupy the empty parking spot, because we're still going to park the cars every other spot. So if we could have people occupy the empty spot, they'd be separated by the car in between them. So at least people could be outside sitting in chairs and not having to sit in their car. So that's one of the things that we're looking to try to do. But we'll have more information on that. Probably not for another week and a half or so, because we got to get through that town meeting to see if there's anything else that we need to inform you guys about to be in compliance with what the town wants.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep. But I think, all the basics. It's going to be June 16th. It's going to be at 8:30. It's going to be at Jennings Beach. Right now it's a carload. One carload of people is the limit. So, borrow your neighbor's, Hummers or whatever you got to do.
Okay. Could people watch it from the beach? Were they able to see it if people who couldn't fit in the car? Do you know?
If they're on the actual beach, no, the burn with the eelgrass is sort of in the way.
Yeah.
And even though there's the pathways, I guess if you're standing up by the concession stand, you might be able to see a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you definitely can see because the screens are humongous, and you can definitely see the screens from anywhere. So as long as they get a clear view over the dune, they'd be okay. But technically, we're not allowing people to come in. So we have, we'll try to get some junior parents to be guards along, like we did last year, along the pathways in between, so that we can't add outside people into the mix, just for all the safety and COVID reasons. So,
Greg, do you assign spots? Or like by lottery?
No, we do reserve some spots, based on if kids are giving speeches or something like that. But for the most part, no, it's really first come, first serve. And that's not. I think that's a misnomer, because you could be the 15th person in line, but you're going to be all the way at the end of the first row. So that may not be the best sight line. I mean, I think you can see from everywhere the way we design it. So it's probably not a big deal, but I want to say it's luck of the draw. Let's put it that way, instead of first come, first serve. I mean, to be honest, I think some people were waiting there for hours and hours ahead of time to make sure that they got a good spot, but you have no control. Like
I just envision like the seniors camping out for their parking spots, at school, or the juniors.
Yeah,
Don't want that.
There'll be no camping out.
Good.
As a parent of a senior, the first year we did it at the beach, I can tell you it is a magnificent venue, and you can see it from no matter where you are. It is just fabulous. The only caution I have is don't leave your radio on to hear it, because we had a few cars that ran out of battery. But it's gorgeous, and I'm really hoping we can do it next year too, but probably not.
All right, thank you so much.
I just had a question for Mr. Hatzis. we received the email today from Mr. Cummings about the incidents of racism at Ward, and then there was reference to an incident that occurred between, was it Ludlow and Ward students? Is that accurate?
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if there's going to be any follow-up about that in the wake of the bracket. I know that there were assemblies for each grade, but this continues to be a problem in terms of students and different kinds of hate speech, it sounds like, in a way. I mean, I guess you wouldn't necessarily say the bracket is hate speech, but it's speech that is inappropriate regarding gender. And I'm wondering if there's any follow-up, or it's the end of the year and we're just kind of letting this go.
Well, it definitely, gives us more information about, what we need to do programming wise with this particular grade 9 kids in particular, in general. I think that sometimes the danger is, we don't want to minimize it in any way, because obviously you never want these types of events to occur. But we also don't want to cast a judgment on the entire population of the school based on the actions of a couple of kids, because it's not the culture we promote. The incident regarding that was mentioned in the statement happened, basically at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, at home. So it wasn't a school event, and so therefore some of the the opportunity for us is more about like gearing our school climate programming toward what we need to send as a message. And so that's how it definitely will impact. And what we what you may hear about shortly in the next week or two is this we are on a 2-year cycle for school climate surveys. And so this one, we're due this year. So we were just working on the revisions to the old survey just earlier this week. So I think that's going to be coming out next week. I'm going to be setting it up a time in school for all the students to take it before the seniors leave as an advisory period, so that we can get the most participation possible, rather than just sending it out and asking kids to just do it on their own. So by having it, supervised with teachers in the room, we would definitely get the most accurate, capture of that. And then we'll send it home to parents as well. So we're looking forward to that, because the results of that often yield some really helpful information. I'm in talking with the communications director and the superintendent about the issue. We wanted to start with the district statement concerning, because it involved both schools. But as for any further details, we're really not at liberty to talk much about details, because of the, anytime if there's consequences involved, we can't get into the details of that, protection, privacy rights of the student and their family. So, it gets into an area. We wanted people to know about it for sure. And, we are definitely addressing it.
Well, I mean, I knew about the first incident, whether I have the correct facts or not. I'm not going to go into it, but it was astounding to me. It shocked my conscience that what happened, frankly. And I'm curious, is this typical in your experience? Like, are these incidences typical? Because maybe I just was not privy to them before. I don't remember receiving this kind of email from the superintendent before. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, well, I can tell you in my time in Fairfield, generally, this is not a frequent occurrence at all. There is no doubt that there have been incidences in the past. We had our own incident at Ludlow about 4 or 5 years ago, where a student recorded a racial slur on a social media post, and it blew up. It went national, getting feedback from everybody. And so I think the delicate thing is that we completely admonish and are sickened by any of that type of behavior. We try so hard to create a welcoming environment for all of our students. And then at the same time, when it's one of your own students who is the culprit, or the perpetrator, right? There's also a really important obligation on our part for education, trying to get to the bottom of it. What was the root cause? And, sometimes it's something that you really can't explain or help. But let's say there are some mental health issues going on. Let's say that there is a lash out from a like a PTSD type of reaction that caused an outburst, right? So again, never excusing any of that incomprehensible and inexcusable behavior, especially in a public way. But then we also have obligations to help everybody, right? So not just, and certainly supporting the students who are targeted, and trying to make sure that they feel like they're welcomed in the environment. So those are all the things that we have to go through. And I know Ward is kind of working through a lot of that right now. It's a meeting set up with the NAACP next week. So we and I know I'll be involved, if not directly, tangentially, in terms of some programming that we're talking about for next year. We've been talking with the ADL in the last couple of days as well to set some stuff up. So, we might be spending some money, that programming money, after all. It's been a while since we've been able to tap into that, but yes.
If I can interject, as a person who's a minority in this town, the thing I find unreal is we always say majority of us aren't like that. I'm going to tell you, as a parent in this town with a daughter who's a different minority than everybody else, it's a daily occurrence. Just because you guys see it finally on social media, coming from firsthand experience living in this town, and I love this town, and I'm very supportive of town. I'm active in this town. To me, I get it on a daily occurrence, whether it's a snide comment or just joking around. So I don't want us to think we're all evil people, but I also don't want us to think it's just an occurrence. It's out there. What you don't see on social media, you don't hear what they're talking to each other about, right? And it's come to this point where, because it's on social media, now it's urgent. It's been urgent since day one, right? And what's going to happen after they meet with the NAACP? You have 2 weeks left of school, and it just goes away again until the next incident. So I just want to make everyone aware, it is out there daily. Whether you see it is another story, but I hear it daily. So I know it's out there. I'm not saying this whole town's a bunch of racists and stuff, but it's just the educational part of the little snide comments. It's there. Whether it's intended to be is another story.
And, and Jason, I don't disagree with you, because, I've had students tell me the same thing. Whether it's LGBTQ students, Asian American students, Black students, any group that feels, that is not white, basically, or sort of quote unquote mainstream in terms of sexual preferences and that type of thing. So one, I know that, with some of the social justice work the district has been trying to engage in, having people look at their own biases has been, some of the professional development that we're talking about in terms of working with our staff for next year. There are definitely efforts made to, whether it's through what people see in the hallway, what's being taught in the curriculum, a lot of those efforts are there to try to address some of these issues. But it is definitely, a school is a microcosm of the society in which it is. So that's, some of it, we do whatever we can on our side, and we definitely react to it whenever we can and know about it. But I think, Jason, one thing I agree with you 100% on is that there's so much of it that we don't see and we don't know.
Thank you.
Well, just before we move on, just a quick comment. It seems to me it may make more sense to spend the money doing something that is not a one-day event as programming. So, and not just surveying.
That's not what I'm talking about, Liz. I'm not talking about, obviously assemblies are a part of it, but, setting up a structural, way to address it is, part of what's happening with the Fairfield Equity Coalition now. The administration the entire administrative team is engaged in that work. There are committees at, across all the buildings now as well, in terms of looking at these things. You know, we're looking at, there's a program called a No Place for Hate School. It's a designation that you earn through long-term vision and goals and setting expectations, having people pledge, you know, to not engage in hate activity. So, you know, these are some of the things that we're talking about. They're not just like one-off assemblies.
What I rather like to see is have a discussion with the parents. You want to take some of these programs. I'm a strong believer. It comes from home. You got to teach and educate properly what's at home, also what's in school, right? The kids, you're going to have an assembly, and all they're going to remember is we're having this assembly because this kid did this thing on social media. After the assembly's over, it's back to normal until something else happens and they have another assembly. I'm all for that, but I also notice that there's no group where the parents come in like a PTA meeting and say, we need to discuss this. We need to understand what's going on.
Unfortunately,
like to
I
see
was
something
just
like that
thinking
in
the
the
same
future.
thing. Oh,
Right.
I'm sorry.
No,
I was
but
just about to say the same thing that Jason said. I mean, it seems that this is an initiative that needs to be not only long-term, but be a family-wide initiative, and parents play a huge part in these kind of
Because I'm
issues.
sure your conversation with your kids is focused on one thing, where my conversation with my daughter is very opposite.
sometimes I feel like the folks that we need to reach the most are not the ones who are attending those assemblies and those you know, programming. So I, you know, that you're right that you know, it's not a reason not to do it, but at the same time, and because you want to build a lot more awareness as well, so people can be on the lookout and call people out and, you know, do those things as needed. But a lot of times the folks that might be planting the wrong types of seeds, they're not showing up to a forum on racism. You know what I mean? So that's a struggle. It's a challenge I think we've seen over the years.
But to Jason's point, are you aware of any committee working with the district to help, you know, any parent committee working with the district to help fashion these kinds of anti-discriminatory programming? And that could be helpful.
At the current timing, no, but I think, you know, a lot of this year, you know, mainly because there couldn't really be meetings other than this type. You know, there was a lot of like organizing to get things off the ground, like with the Equity Coalition. So you know, but I have not yet seen a parent organization latch onto that. It obviously the parents would be involved in any type of initiative that move forward, because, you know, that would be, you know, it would be silly and ridiculous not to, but I think that is part of the long-term planning.
If I could interject a minute, Fairfield PTA Council has an equity committee that Jen Weinstein has been leading up until this year, and we are bringing in Jennifer Elwood to lead that committee next year. There are there are a few different groups in town that are addressing this issue, and one of her main goals too is to collaborate with all of them and to get a single mission to go ahead so we can all work together. It may be a good idea that, I mean, every PTA has a delegate to the PTA Council, but you also might want to put together a liaison to the Equity Committee as well from each PTA that would meet with Jen Elwood for next year. So that's how we're starting the conversation, and we have the system in place, but now we are ramping it up to the place where it belongs. Thanks.
Right. I think that's my basic question is what kind of vehicle could there be for parent involvement in this situation? So, and what is most efficient way to do this with the district.
I think
yeah,
you'll all be hearing more about this, very soon into the school year, if not over the summer.
Okay, any more questions, concerns, topics for Greg? Okay, thank you. Budget Rep Steve Baker, do you have anything to report? You're muted.
Sorry, Greg summed up the the only thing I had that was news to that. So budget, stay tuned for next year. That's it.
Okay. Sue Horn, not here, but same thing, Steve, nothing new for P-TECH other than what you,
Yeah, we're voting on our budget next year, Monday. And it will, like I mentioned at our last PTA council, there'll be a little bit different structure this coming year. PTA council will no longer be in the money business. We're going to be more about connection and collaboration. So there will not be any grants moving forward. And we'll be working together and hopefully supporting each other in our goals. Thanks.
thank you. Always remote families, Jason, do you have anything to report?
The only question I have are, and also for my benefit, will these incoming sophomores have an opportunity to get in to walk around the school prior to the first day of school?
We do have, about a week before school starts, we have an open house for freshmen and any new students. So, and it's a tour. So we were going to invite any of the always remote students who hadn't yet to do that, if they didn't come back, in the last month or so, that they would be a part of that.
Okay. And the final schedule, are the kids coming in, remote kids coming in, or will it still be
For the
remote?
finals, well, we're not requiring, we're not saying that they have to. Some teachers might promote and say, if it's possible, it might behoove them to do that. And so, it's not going to be a requirement.
Okay, cool. And I don't think I'll have this position next year, so it's been fun.
I hope you don't. My daughter
Hopefully
needs
we'll never